this is the pre-show show, if you will. I have to start my broadcast a few minutes early to get everything on and set up. So I got my invite to my guest going out right now. As many of you know, John Kaiser is our guest today. John will be on the show here fairly quickly, I would hope, if everything works out great. And then for viewers that are coming in at a later time to watch the recorded version, if you look on the screen above me there, I'm going to put how many minutes in when the actual show starts. So if you've kind of got into this pre-show part, it's because I'm setting things up. But I'm awaiting John Kaiser right now. I'm also awaiting the link from YouTube so that I can put that on my, oh, we got the link now. So I'm going to put that link in my show, in my web page right now from YouTube. I know I don't need to bore you all with this, but for those tuning in early, that's what I got to go through. Again here, just bear with me. Shouldn't take me too much longer to get everything, including our guest, on. We're now live on the website. So those that are tuning in now, I'm still awaiting our guest, John Kaiser. I think he has now joined the show, and we are live on the website. I saw John come in there, I believe.
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, John. Where's your web camera, though? I can't see you.
Oh, that's what do I need to do enable? Because I can see myself in my web camera in the little corner.
Oh, there you are. Perfect. Now I can see you. And you can see me?
Yep.
And I can see the rocks in the background. Good, John. So we're live on my website. For your guests that came in earlier, I put up a little a blog post, and I told them when the show was going to start. So they'll arrive right about now when we're going to start it. So I'll do that ahead of time next. So I'm going to get started here, John, right now. Hello, everybody. It's Allan Laboucan here. I'm the founder of the Allan Reports and the host of the show. Got a great guest, John Kaiser, is joining us again. This is the second time in the last 2 weeks. Thanks a lot for coming on, John.
Allan, it's great to be back on your show.
And this time we got the technology figured out so everybody can see you as well.
Yeah, they can see my grimaces and other facial expressions.
And your smiles and everything like that. Yeah. We always have a good chat, John. So what I'm going to do is, again, John, before we get started, I got to send a word out to my sponsors. Premier Gold is a new sponsor since you've been on last time. I Premier Gold, for the new viewers, is a gold-focused company. They have developing property in near Beardsmore in the Geraldton district of Ontario. They have a producing property in partnership with Barrick down in Nevada. They've got exploration in Nevada and also exploration in Red Lake, Ontario. John, you must know about Premier Gold.
Yeah, in fact, it's one of my more expensive members of my bottom fishing edition for 2016.
Why did you pick them?
I'm particularly, well, they're cash rich, they're experienced, they've got a great track record. They have the Hard Rock Extension project in Red Lake, but I'm interested in what they are going to do in Nevada. I think Nevada is one of the big frontiers. The big guys are not doing that much except brownfields exploration. I think Nevada is an area where an aggressive junior could do extremely well.
Perfect. Well, that's you know, I'm pretty hot on the Red Lake stuff with that tunnel they built to connect two of Goldcorp's mines, and now they can chase that high grade at depth. But yeah, I do notice and have noticed the exploration and development work that they're doing in Nevada, which is very exciting as well. The other sponsor is Wolfden. We did get a chance to talk briefly about Wolfden last time you were on, John. Their high-grade discovery of nickel and copper in in just outside of Snow Lake, Manitoba. WLF is their symbol. They trade on Vancouver. What do you think about that that project, John?
Yeah, I think that's a great project. It is one of my bottom fish companies, as I mentioned. They will be at the PDAC conference coming up, and I'm looking forward to sitting down with management and going through what they think they've got evolving on that project.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, John, for that. Now, I want to turn the table and promote your work a little bit here coming up too, John. You're going to be at the PDAC. You're a regular speaker there. You're going to be at that investor forum. I've spoke at that a few times as well. And one of the things that I've always appreciated, John, is your documenting of the PDAC effect. Let's get into a little bit of chat about your speaking, the PDAC, and some other stuff.
Well, my talk is, I believe, at 10:20 or so on Sunday morning and during the investor newsletter program. I believe it is free to get into that if you register in advance. And I'll be doing a similar talk to what I did in Vancouver, where I talk about the 4 narratives. I'm also going to talk about or at least point out the companies that are exhibiting at PDAC, which are current Kaiser recommendations. My site now has 303 resource companies tagged as exhibiting at PDAC, and 61 of those, 20%, are open recommendations, either spec value hunter, formal buys, or bottom fish accumulation targets.
Okay. Now, John, you can see my screen, correct? When you're looking on the little box there?
I only see you and your TV in the background.
Perfect. What I'm going to do, John, is you showed me this awesome tool that I have to talk to my viewers about. I think any investor that doesn't take advantage of this tool in this space is missing out and wasting a ton of time. Your subscription to your Kaiser Bottom Fishing Report is worth this one tool alone in time saving for me. So what I'm going to do, John, is I'm going to do a screen share here, and so you can keep an eye on what I'm talking about regarding where I am on your website. Just bear with me a second. I'm going to pull it up because I want to talk. Okay, so here's the tool I'm talking. Okay, say I'm on John's site, and now I've gone to this tool. It's called the Kaiser Research Online Search Engine. John, you can see that, right?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so we're going to have to be a little tricky here because while I'm scrolling through, you're going to have to do the talking, but this main screen will only be on when I'm doing the talking. So here's the first thing. John showed me how to do a filter, and what he did is he had this I filtered on 2 things. John has a recommendation on the company, and the company will be at the PDAC Toronto 2016 conference. So now I could have gone into price ranges as capital parameters. I could have added market capitalization, shares issued, working capital as currency. I could have went by project location, what country they're in, what state they're in that country. I could have gone into commodities that I'm focused on, target metals. There's all these other tools, but I just focused on those 2. And now, boom, this is the result I get. Approximately 40-some companies that are John's reports and going to be at the PDAC, so I can start doing my homework right now. John, tell us about this tool. I think it's spectacular.
Well, Allan, you have latched onto the crown jewel of Kaiser Research Online. This is the most powerful and effective search engine for the resource juniors. Our site covers all the Canadian listed companies. We track all the data such as issued. We track the projects, and we've got it all categorized in a way so that as you saw with all those different parameter boxes, you can put together complex queries at the corporate level and at the project level, and then just hit a submit button, and you get what you just saw there, an endless display of snapshots of the company that has all the basic stuff like shares out, working capital, a longer term and a short term charts that if they were venture listed show when financings were done, little icons show when I recommended them or gave up on them, and also a project listing of the different projects the companies has, and only the ones that you specified in the project section would actually show up. So this is my tool that I use extensively in the system to do two things. One, just to survey the lay of the land. I mean, sometimes I walk the entire thing and just search everything, and I just look. In those pictures, the charts and that, I can figure out anything. But I also use it if I'm interested in advanced gold projects. I put together a query, one that makes sure they have positive working capital and so on, and I go and look at it, and I basically discard all the fluff out there that's irrelevant to my search. And then, of course, you'll see those little icons there. The name itself takes you into the profile. The little tree thing takes you into what all the people are. And the little website link takes you right into the company's website. And also the forum takes you to Stockhouse, where you can see all the gossip and stuff. And it even takes you into CDAR if you want to see the actual documents themselves. So this is incredible tool.
Let me blab for a couple seconds so we can get the screen showing the viewers what you're talking about there. You know how long, John, I've been looking for a tool like this. You as a commentator, me as a commentator, sometimes we get called up by TV. They want us to talk about a subject. It takes me time to go and say, for example, the project's in Peru and it's in gold. And all of a sudden now I got to get wrapped up on gold in Peru real quick. I've been looking for a tool like this forever. Look at this thing you get. So you were showing me, I can find out the market capitalization. I can find out how much cash they got, how much stock is issued. I got a chart as a snapshot here. Below that, I can see the various different projects that they're involved in, where those projects are, what country they're in, the implied value of those projects, what the commodity is, what kind of deposit it is. And that was for that filter. Now you showed me something else, which was real cool, John, which was, okay, so now...
Yes, scroll down to, say, Arizona Mining Inc., a bottom fish that I just wrote up last night. There, when you click on that...
I got it.
That is the profile of the company. It's like a big container where I throw everything that I have about the company. You'll see some sort of a summary there, the different charts, other facts, the corporate history changed, some bigger charts. Those little icons are resource estimates and feasibility studies and so on that they've done. You get a snapshot of financing activity, past recommendations. If you go a little farther, you will see, there, stop there, go a little higher. Capital, there, you can see a snapshot of the balance sheet.
Okay, hold on, John. Now when I'm talking, people can actually see what I'm seeing on the screen. And there's John telling you about the capital position of the company, financials dated, the reporting period, how much cash they've got, all the key data. You know, before you give away too much, John, I'm going to go back now and show them what you were talking about. So here you've got a synopsis of the company. Right below that, I can get the high, low, the volume, all the trading activity, the stock charts. I can get where they're listed on, how much stock, all the key information. Then John's telling you there's an expanded chart. John was also telling you about the capital. Now this is what I found really cool, John, is down here, you keep going, and you find out the people that are associated with the project company as well. Where am I getting here?
You need to go higher up. You've gone through the project section.
Okay, you chat a little now about what I'm scrolling through here, John.
Okay, so what we also do is we track all the people that are associated with a company. so that when somebody calls me up, I immediately pull up their profile, and I see what who the officers are, who the directors are, how much paper they own based on their AGM circular. And I immediately have a sense of who's the important people in the company. Do they have any skin in the game that's disclosed? And you'll notice that there's a little thing called a people tree available, which also shows up as a thing I call tree.
That's what I was looking for. Okay, John, so now I'm clicking on the tree. You see there, folks? And now I get another screen, and look at that. Right there is all the people that are involved and how long they've been involved with, how much share ownership, what the percentage is, what their position is, if they're an insider, a director, an officer, what their profession is. And then this is real. Tell them about the other part, John. I don't want to break it to them.
Well, the company at the top is the trunk of the tree. And when you scroll down, you will see every company that every one of those people in the trunk that is in green displayed a similar snapshot showing who the people are connected, a few basic information, a chart. And the red charts are the ones that are companies that have been taken over either because they were delisted and defunct, or because they were a success story bought out by somebody else.
Like this one here. So, okay, so John, I figured it out now. Okay, so we're looking at, first, here's all the related parties, okay? Now I go down and I see, okay, Richard Wark and Stuart Angus were involved with Ventana. Well, I don't know that company, but I certainly know Augusta Resources. And I see, okay, Augusta Resources, I remember they were taken over, and I can see who the two current people involved were also involved with Augusta Resources. And then I can hit this people tree available, and then I can find out all the people that were associated with Augusta Resources, right, John?
That's right. And then, of course, I call it doing the people tree hop, because you pick one of those companies, click on the people tree, and then you get a whole bunch of connections of people that were connected to that company. And one of the interesting things that I like about this is, yeah, we know what the current promotion is, the overpriced company that they all want you to buy, but this also reveals other companies that are in their stable that are not quite as advanced, where they're still positioning themselves, or the project isn't quite ready for a major promotion or anything. And I can sort of explore and find all kinds of goodies. It's like going into a store where the stuff they want to flog to you is in front, and then you go into the back room and find all the goodies that they're going to serve you up in the future at bargain prices.
Yeah, exactly. This is John, I am blown away with this tool. I've seen a lot of your work over the years. I've seen your rational speculation models and stuff like that. I had no idea that you had compiled this tool that I've been looking for, and I think every investor has to. This is how you get down to the nitty gritty of what's going on with the company.
Yes, and you know, for $100, you get 30-day access to absolutely everything. And if you are planning to head to PDAC and you're not already an existing KRO member, I would suggest spend that $100 now. Get online, you'll get to see all the bottom fish picks, but you'll also be able to use this search engine to completely research all the companies that are at PDAC, and in particular the ones I've already flagged as particularly interesting as stocks that are going to do well in the next year or so.
You know, and one of the things that I'm always fighting with when I go to a conference, John, is the filtering process of which ones do I want to talk to, and then being focused on going and finding them and everything. This gives me, you know, the ability to have questions ready. All the important stuff is right at my fingertips. Again, I think your full year membership is worth it. Now, if people, you're saying that if I just wanted to prepare myself for the PDAC, I could, for $100, I could be a member for 3 months, and also I can use all these tools and everything to get ready for the PDAC.
Yeah, and imagine if you had an iPad and could actually get an internet connection at PDAC, and you're there going up to a booth and you pull up this company, and you could terrorize the people in that booth by knowing more about their company than they can possibly dredge up from their own memory.
You know, John, I've been at a booth before when you've done that to somebody, and you know, you've bombarded them knowing more about their company than they do, and it can be pretty humorous, but not just humorous. There's a lot of good. There's a reason why you can do that, John, and it's because you've got tools like this that you've been working on for a long time, right?
Yeah, well, Alan, I'm more than a half century old, and my ability to remember all these details is failing. So this is what extends me. I mean, with this tool, I just need to remember how to find the stuff, and then it goes bing, bing, bing. I figure out, oh, yes, 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 and everything comes back into perspective. This is the value of a system like this. It allows you to forget all this stuff until you need to know about it. And then you've got everything at your fingertips, and you can use your contextual knowledge and experience to figure out what is going on with this company.
You know, John, again, I'll make the case that I think investors would be wise to be a subscriber to your report just for the quality of the research. But this tool alone, for $100, you got to be compelled to try it out. I'm blown away by the tool, John, and I've been at this business for a long time. So I'm going to get off of that screen now, John. We're back face to face. So you're going to be at the PDAC. We did talk about your that tool. I'm just so stoked about it. Are there some big themes that you're going to talk about at the PDAC? I remember sitting and watching you a few years ago, John, talk about the PDAC effect and things like that. You always have some kind of topic like that. What are you formulating for this year's PDAC?
Well, for the past couple of years, I've been talking about the commodity cycle being in a severe downtrend. It has bottomed, I think, but in terms of another super cycle, I think it's probably 6 to 10 years before India can drive any super cycle. I've talked a fair bit about security of supply. I think the next big game that the institutions will get into is when all this political turbulence we're seeing starts to spin out of control, and all of a sudden China no longer has good relationships with the United States, nor the Russia with the United States and Europe, and all of a sudden the supply channels for a lot of commodities that come from these parts of the world are disrupted. And if we have a continuation of this sort of global recession, we're going to see some of these commodity producer countries implode, and that could impact their supply. So there's going to be a push towards projects that are in safer jurisdictions. And one area that I'm particularly interested in is North America, because I see an isolationist trend within the United States. You see it in Sanders and Trump, the top contenders. There's like this implicit retreat away from globalization, kind of like retreating back to America. But they have a problem because they have outsourced so much stuff, so much manufacturing, so much mining and all that. And the big guys, when they see the disruption elsewhere, they're going to look at projects in that part in that part of the world. But the other thing that I'm really more interested in right now is a return to discovery exploration. That is the theme I'm really going to be hammering, because I'm not optimistic that metal prices will do anything fabulous in the near term. I think the concern about the deflation and negative interest rates is now creating a new reason for gold ownership. So I see gold as perhaps holding this uptick that it has and not failing as it's done after PDAC for the last few years. But I'm sort of saying that the base metal prices are as low as they can probably go. In the future, they will be higher. So let's explore for projects, deposits that work with these prices. And when you start finding something with good enough grade and size implications, home in on it and just focus on the data flow. And if we do get an unexpected uptrend in metal prices, well, that's a bonus.
John, you know, as you were saying that, your tool kept coming back into my mind, and I'm thinking, you know, I want to look for a project in Canada, and it's in gold. and it's in Quebec. On those three things, I probably could have saved myself a tremendous amount of time and now I've got a list of all the companies that are in Quebec, right?
Yeah, and I also have a little flag in there, some technical analysis parameters where if you want to see something that's coming out of the flatlining pattern, you pick something that's above whatever 10-day moving average for so many days, and you add that as a filter so that you can see the ones that are starting to perk. And you look at my bottom fish index of 100 companies, and this thing's up 20% already as a group. There is a subtle turnaround happening right now.
I agree, John. So let's take that search that I just did in my head and go to another topic that we wanted to talk about today, John, which was Quebec. You are following some stuff in Quebec. Why don't you introduce some of those ideas for us, John?
Well, one of the companies that caught my attention several weeks ago was Sirius Resources, Inc., run by Dominique Doucet. This company was a bottom fish buy below 10 cents, where it'd been stuck forever, about 77 million shares.
Before you go on, what's the symbol on that one?
SOI on the Venture Exchange.
Okay, sorry for interrupting you there.
So on February 9th, I noticed this thing was at 12 cents. And I said, what is going on here? It's broken out of this thing. And I checked out the news release, and the news release kind of indicated excitement by management. The content of the news release was not that significant. So I did a little bit further work and published a few days ago an elaborate explanation of the geological context. This company may finally have figured out what its low-grade gold envelope at Chichu is all about. And this is about 15 kilometers southeast of Eleanor, which is now in production at 300,000 ounces a year and will eventually ramp up to 600,000. This was Andre Gaumond's Virginia gold discovery in 2004, arguably the best exploration gold discovery in Canada in the past decade. It's in the middle of the James Bay lowland area, which everybody's now calling the EU Itchy area in respect of the Cree community and whose jurisdiction this resides. And there was a good, half-decent area play, but it fizzled because nobody really found anything. In the Eleanor South project, into which Goldcorp farmed, it was controlled by East Main Resources and Azimuth. They found a big geochemical gold anomaly, traced it back to a showing called the JT, trenched it, drilled it. It was nothing really consequential, and so they kind of gave up. And Sirius, which had farmed out its projects to Golden Valley, in 2012 optioned it all back because they wanted to follow up some low-grade surface outcropping in a rock that was different from what hosts the Eleonora gold deposit. And they have been working away at this, coming up with these low-grade intersections. They thought they had a bulk tonnage project back in 2013, but when gold dived below $1,500, that was like end of that story. But they kept getting these higher grade snippets that didn't hang together. And now they've realized that they may have been just following the obvious northwest structure, which is the margin between this intrusive and the country rocks, which is a controlling feature. But the high grade seems to have a northeast, southwest structural control. So now they've got a program underway drilling in that direction, and that's what that news release signaled, that they hit something.
So they're going to chase the high grade more.
Yes, because 0.3 to 0.5 gram per ton, unless you're like a rabid gold bug who sees $2,000 without inflation, it's not going to work. But coming up with underground structures that are sort of in the 3 to 10 gram range that you can mine as an underground mine, that is the game. So they have like several 100 million tons of mineralized rock. So you go find yourself 10, 20 million tons of 6 to 10 grams type mineralization, you're in the game. The infrastructure's been built, and Goldcorp's the obvious one to swallow this little junior. And the valuation at the moment's still just $10 million for 100% interest. So if they're onto something, and we'll know probably in 2 to 3 weeks if their theory is correct,
So they're drilling right now, John?
Yes, they are. They start in January, 25 holes. They've got about half of that already done.
When did you see the stock pop up? Was it just
It
recent?
was sort of the day it happened, and I said, "What is going on here?" And
So was it the day they started drilling, or it's been recently after the drilling's been ongoing?
no, it was when they published a news release showing that they had intersected a different unit, and this unit itself is not going to be a big pile of tonnage because it's country rock that's been digested, but they had visible gold in it, and what it told them was, okay, the mineralizing event happened after the intrusion, and it's basically following this edge of the tonalite body and the Paranisus to the northeast of that. And it helps also explain why this area to the northwest, which is covered by a swamp, an overburden about which they know absolutely nothing, could be the source of this huge JT regional geochemical anomaly that was dragged over the barren part of tonalite, which, because it's more competent, sticks out as a hill and it's got absolutely nothing in it. And the sort of, it's like an indicator mineral train that terminates on the southwestern side on the down ice. Now they've got a rig on there drilling several blind scout holes to see what the bedrock is. And if the theory is correct that that is the actual source of this big geochemical gold arsenic anomaly, and they hit into it, we're talking about a major, major system. So this stock, if they get joy on that, could go ballistic. But even if it doesn't there, the area they are focused where they can drill all summer, if they are right about these structural controls, then it becomes just a mechanical process of drilling this off. So the stock's still cheap because people don't know. And in this, we're still in a bear market, so people do not build a huge anticipation premium into stocks, which is why it's really fun. You watch for little stocks to pop like some sort of kernel of corn, and you focus in, because in this bear market, it's hard for a stock to get any upside movement. And when it does, that in itself is a very important indicator in this context that people in the know, probably with not a lot of money, are out there buying the stock.
Got it. Yeah, no, John, that's those are good indicators, and it's especially in a place like where Eleanor is located. You know that there's, good juices flowing out there, and now they may have a structural story to talk about. It sounds pretty interesting. I'm definitely going to put that one on my list. So you also mentioned East Main a little bit there, John. How does East Main play into this Eleanor and area, and what's the story on that one?
Well, East Main has about a 36% interest that also Goldcorp has in the Eleanor South deposit or property that's just to the southwest of Chichu and south of the Eleanor project itself. And they basically stopped work several years ago because they could not find anything interesting to focus on. East Main is a spec value hunter buy recommendation because of its Eau Claire deposit farther south. And they spent over 30 million bucks drilling this thing in the last 15 years. And last year they finally put out a resource estimate based on what they now think are the structural controls for the mineralization in this high-grade quartz tourmaline system. And of course they had to pay for that by losing over 500,000 ounces of the deeper potential, because they realized the drill density is not high enough to connect the dots and have those ounces. So they're showing 1 million ounces that can be open pittable, and they're working on a PEA, which they will come out with. They did a lot of drilling last year. Hopefully
what's
they
the
get
infrastructure like around that place?
It is I think 100+ kilometers south, and it is in a better location. There is there's infrastructure. There's the power infrastructure from one of the Quebec hydro reservoirs there. It is a much better location than the Eleanor deposit itself. So they will not have the hideous capex needed to kick off Eleanor as a gold mine.
And they could likely get support from the Quebec government that's really pro-mining and pro-job creation, right?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of government handouts to try and make projects viable just to create jobs and so on. I would prefer it much more if they would focus on the permitting cycle and not make it so hideously difficult to get a project that clearly is promising and will create jobs. Let's get this going. We have a lot of new environmental rules. The companies know how to build mines that comply with these rules. It's this endless obstacle course and permitting hoops that I think are the real problem in Canada.
Yeah, and First Nations issues play into that as well. John, how are these companies doing with their First Nations issues out there?
Well, some are doing terrible. It really depends on what's the driving force in the group within whose jurisdiction a project falls. If they've been captured by the anti-mining environmental lobby, they'll end up opposing it because it's going to affect land that they maybe have some trap lines in, or once in a while go fishing in. On the other hand, on a more productive basis, if they are entrepreneurial minded and want to grow their community and not lose all their smart people to the universities where they end up marrying somebody who is not an Aboriginal, and then their children lose their native status and all that. They want to build a thriving community in their territories. Those groups want to negotiate with the companies and do a deal which creates jobs and which also give them a share of the action. And the question is, how greedy are they with regard to the share of the action? So I think in Quebec we have a better situation than we have in Ontario. I think it is better in that regard.
Well, John, that's something that's near and dear to my heart. And I've been in the mining business for a long time, and what I've been approached recently on is to be a speaker in UBC, and by a group that's trying to get more involved. I had talked about using traditional knowledge with science and creating opportunities out in the field to use the field as a learning environment to, I think that you put a First Nations kid out in the ground, it's like putting Gretzky on the ice. They have these inherent talents with identifying rock, good memories, identifying landmarks and stuff like that. I mean, John, you had to in order to stay alive, and these are tools that I don't really think a lot of mining companies embrace. And so, my thing that I'm always trying to do is I see that jobs are needed out on those traditional lands, and I think that there's a way to do it. And I'm seeing signs that the industry is starting to embrace things, and I think it's a two-way street, and I'm trying to do what I can on my end to be a bridge builder, because I think those jobs are important for Canada and for the First Nations, and I think we want to get moving forward.
Well, what I would encourage you to push for is for Native people to enroll in geology programs, because the old story is Natives were expert trackers. They could see the most subtle clues in the forest, and that showing where an animal or whatever had walked before, and they could track it to its source. In geology is something very similar. You have subtle clues at surface, the real target is hidden, and if somehow these two narratives could be merged into one, that could be a tie to a past which only a few people still practice that. But as a geologist, this person could deploy that same sort of thinking anywhere in the world.
Absolutely, John. It's like, what it's like to be out in the field looking for diamond indicator minerals. There's some people that you can walk on the surface and they can see those tiny little grains while they're walking. That's the kind of thing that helps find mines, old-fashioned geology, boots on the ground, and as my friend Bob Barnett says, look down. And I don't think that enough of that is done, and so I'm a big proponent of that, and I'm trying to. You never know, John. There might be an Allan Berry type public company one day in the future.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent.
Now, speaking about diamonds, do you want to talk about a potentially exciting new diamond story that popped up yesterday?
I do, and I also want to let my audience know that we got a bit of a scoop here. So go ahead, John. Tell us about this new company you've been following.
Well, the company's not new. Canalaska Uranium has been around forever, and it's been engaged in uranium exploration in the Athabasca Basin since 2007 or so. And there's not much stock out, 22 million shares, trading at 16 cents, has multiple projects, has just recovered the MacArthur West project, 50% interest from Mitsubishi for $600,000 after Mitsubishi spent $16.5 million on it. It's right next door to Cameco's Fox Lake uranium discovery, which is about 400,000 tons of 8% uranium, which is a really, really good grade. But that's not the news story. Yesterday, they put out a release that they staked 75 kimberlite targets in the northwestern part of the Athabasca Basin. And that immediately caught my attention, and I followed it up. And this is quite an amazing story, because this part of the basin is the deepest part, 1,500 meters to 2,000 meters deep. If you're looking for uranium at the unconformity, forget about it. You're going to blow your brains out drilling geophysical targets that are barely discernible. But the government, the Saskatchewan Geological Survey, did a magnetic survey that they published in 2011, and Canalaska got hold of that and had their geophysicists crunch all the data, and they realized there are all these discrete magnetic anomalies in here which have no obvious explanation.
Now, John, when I first heard the story in the news release, I was a little bit skeptical, because you've heard, well, we got these booming geophysical targets before, and most of the time those booming targets aren't really what you're looking for. You're looking for more subtle mag. And so now you've got me more interested. And when you told me that they were subtle mag targets, it sounded in the news release like they were booming mag highs or mag lows, not sort of soft.
Well, they don't need to be subtle, because the sandstone background rock it's a uniform thing. So what you're really looking for are disruptions in the background magnetic response. And when you see these discrete eruptions against a background like that, you say, well, what punched through this sedimentary package? And to me, this is exciting, because even the government, when it did its big regional kimberlite sampling program, stopped sort of in the Carswell structure area, and nobody went into this area because it is simply the most boring, useless part of the Athabasca Basin. And then lo and behold,
for uranium, it's boring.
Yes, but even for the kimberlite fields, like the Birch Mountain field found in Alberta, that one has kimberlites, but they're barren. Then there's the Buffalo Hills field farther to the west, which does have diamondiferous kimberlites, but not apparently at a grade that really deserves pursuing. But here we are.
There's a bit of cover on those too, isn't there, John? On those Buffalo Head ones, or am I getting it wrong?
Well, yeah, there is some cover. I mean, those were also picked out as geophysical anomalies that showed up when the oil workers, when the oil company, Canada's favorite, Alberta Energy, whatever it was called, noticed these things, and one of the geologists said, I wonder what this is. And they ended up doing a deal with Ashton, and Ashton went in there and started drilling them, and lo and behold, they were kimberlites. And so we had this brand new field, and it was quite exciting. We had an area play at the time. This was around 2000 or so, but they never had the grade. And now we have this area here overlooked by everybody. There are some big structural trends in that area that could have helped with kimberlitic magmas rising. There's also the intriguing Carswell structure, which some people think is a meteor impact crater, but others think it's just a coming together of all these big tectonic forces that popped up the ground. And such forces could also have had deep-seated implications that may have unleashed a wave of kimberlite emplacements. Now, we don't know at this point if they are kimberlites. I suspect they probably are. We don't know if they are diamondiferous, but they are underlain by the Ray Archean province, which we do know has
Oh, right, that comes way over and includes over by the Eastern Arctic as well, right?
that's right, the whole Nunavut area there, and we know like the Kahuna and so on, there are diamondiferous kimberlites in this area. So in this case, and we also know to the southeast of the Athabasca Basin, there is the Piku area where North Arrow has found some very nice dikes that suggest 100 CPHT grade or better. One of my little bottom fish, Alto Ventures, has a project to the east where they have identified some more circular type targets, and they'll be trying to go after those this year. But what I like about this field is this looks like a field of reasonably intact pipes, if these are indeed kimberlites. So we have the
Imagine that's a cluster?
That's, well, yeah, I mean, and they have kind of funny linear trends too that suggest that they're tracking some deep-seated structural features that could have assisted with the emplacement of these magmas. So I think that this could be one of these surprise things that periodically the Canadian juniors drop on the markets, just as Chuck Fipke did with his Diamet Lac de Gras discovery in late '91, when we were in the midst of a sort of a 4-year miserable bear market, and kicked off an incredible diamond exploration boom. This isn't going to kick off a Canada-wide or worldwide diamond exploration boom, but it could end up.
It could be one of those ones that, you know, sleepy little 12-center that all of a sudden wakes up to $2-3.
That's right, but it will take a while because they want to spend $500,000 to $1.2 million or so over the summer visiting these targets, sampling nearby, just building up a big database on it. So they probably won't get tested until 2017, and they are showing it to different groups which have deeper pockets and perhaps more diamond expertise, because Canalaska, as Peter Dassler says, it is a uranium-focused company, and while it did all the homework to figure out that this is worth staking, they do not want to be distracted from their primary focus.
Okay, well, maybe I'll have to talk to Mr. Dassler. I think I might be giving him a phone call pretty soon, John.
Why not?
That's interesting. So they're going to do the prelim work. They're going to go out and look for some indicator minerals to back up these targets.
Yeah, and you know what? If they do farm it out to a strong group with deep pockets, this group might drill some of the targets. A lot of them are under bog and little lakes and stuff like that. So it's almost like a Northwest Territories type terrain where you really want to do all your drilling in the summer. But one of their key goals will be to confirm that these are indeed kimberlites and pick up down ice indicator minerals, and when you probe them, confirm these are diamond prospective kimberlite indicators. So I think by the end of the third quarter or last quarter of this year, we should have a pretty good understanding of the potential of this region. What I like about it is the company's undervalued as a uranium exploration junior.
And this is just a bonus.
Yeah, so you get this upside for free. And even if they do some sort of farm out where they net 30% at the end of the day, when they then spin that out as a separate company after somebody spends tens of millions of dollars advancing it, you would end up with a piece of that action without actually having corporate suffering the dilution to find out whether this is indeed a kimberlite field that has diamond potential.
Old-fashioned kind of promotion and doing things, eh, John? That's the way they used to do things.
Well, you know, the nice thing about this market is you can get free lunches. By buying Canalaska, you get a free ride on the diamond potential, which could end up being nothing, but it could end up being very substantial, because if they have picked the eyes out of this, and this is the thing, this area is quite quiet. People will probably, other juniors will probably infill stake all the ground around it at some point, but unless there are, as you sort of wonder, extremely subtle targets in this area, Canalaska may have in the words, in the ill-fated words of Chuck Phipke, got it all with this first round of picking the eyes out of this area.
Well, I hope if they got it all, they didn't forget Diavik.
That's right. Well, hopefully, but again, if anybody does some proximity staking, it'll be blind staking, hoping to piggyback on this being substantial. And they would have to do that fairly early because this play won't have validation until, say, late 2017 at the earliest. This is the bummer about diamond exploration. It takes so long to reach that tipping point where you know you're onto something big. But the scale of this, the location,
you know, sort of formulating a plan to turn something around and build something serious should take some time. It you know, you want to try to attract the investors that are going to give you some of that time instead of, you know, the problem with a lot of these companies is they're always over promising and under delivering. You know, they would do much better to just tell me the story and then go out and do your work. And if you can do that, you'll be much more successful than trying to do the old-fashioned stock promotion. It just doesn't work anymore.
Well, Allan, you know, promising is something that's inappropriate in exploration. Articulating what your model is, what your hypothesis is, and demonstrating what is the potential upside if you are right, that is okay. But making promises
that's what I mean, John. You tell your story in a way that your audience and your shareholders know what you're doing. Not all these companies are really good at that part of this game.
No, and this bear market is getting rid of the incompetent groups who do not know how to generate a geological hypothesis, who do not know how to illustrate it with diagrams, cartoons, and so on, and marshal all the supporting data into a form where people can look at it and say, you know, this makes sense.
And I'm not against
to drill it.
I'm not against promoting projects. I have a problem when someone tries to pitch me on a promoting stock. I'm much more interested in promoting projects. That's what I'm all about. And so yeah, you have to have that ability in these companies to explain what your story is and what you're trying to do. Trying to explain your stock just doesn't work anymore.
And you know, the old thing, if you come across some little outcrop that's got you know, 1 ounce gold over 5 inches or so, unless you can make a case that there's a very substantial geological context that allows a deposit with economic potential to exist within this area, who cares?
You know, years ago, John, when I was an IR guy, I called you up one time and we had a long conversation. And I remember you talking about exactly that, about how people would come to you with a story that just doesn't fit. And they're talking about multi-million ounces of gold in a place where they're confined and they're not going to find multi-million ounces of gold.
That's right. And you know, I think we're probably running out of time, but an example is one that I just wrote up last night called Arizona Mining Inc., AZ on the TSX. And they blew $70 million on a known system trying to demonstrate that you can recover silver and manganese from this big deposit and make a profit. And of course, they use base case prices that are higher than the metal prices are now. But what they did was they noticed some sulfide skarn at the pit bottom where the oxides transitioned. And they said, well, maybe we can extend the mine life of this thing by having an underground sulfide mining operation. So they started exploring at the bottom, came up with a pitiful 5 million tons of, you know, 2% zinc, 2% lead, and some silver. But the geologist, Don Taylor, just kept beavering away trying to sort out what is going on here. And they followed the tracks, the geology, drilled more holes, and they are now sitting on something. They reported a 40 million ton resource, so 4.5% zinc, 4.5% lead, 2 ounce silver, almost $200 rock at current prices. but they've put together the geological context that says, oh my gosh, there are probably several 100 million tons of this type of mineralization going down from a depth of about 400 meters to 1,600 meters. A huge, huge system, probably the second biggest lead zinc deposit in the United States after Red Dot. This is a world-class discovery. And they kind of announced it last year, middle of last year, but the market is so blah that it didn't pay much attention, which was fine for management because they needed to get a key piece of ground out of one of these environmental trusts. And they ended up doing so by assuming the reclamation liability of about $3 million. And probably 100 million tons of this material sits under this old patented claim, on top of which was a crummy little lead zinc mine that ASARCO operated. And although it drilled a deep hole to the northwest and discovered the Manto zone, on which the $70 million was spent, they never troubled to drill a deep hole through the little mine to find out where this leakage came from that was in the volcanics. Had they done that, they would have speared this carbonate replacement system that tracks the contact between the overlying volcanics and the underlying carbonates and seen that, wow, we have a dot over here that's very high grade. We've got what the surface eruption that is the oxidized stuff that's lower grade. And now we've got something here in the middle. And this is all continuous, and it's a world-class lead, zinc, silver system. And this company has no money at the moment, but it is, when you were showing the Augusta, it's a Richard Ward company. Ventana Gold bought out for $1.4 billion cash.
From a copper project in Arizona.
Yes, they're familiar with all the headaches that you can get permitting the project. This was the Rosemount that they had. It got bought out by Hut Bay for about $550 million worth of paper in 2014. This company was called Wildcat Silver before. It kind of ended up on its rear when this base metal bear market really took hold. But they took this mineralized system, this thing that's just pregnant, and they rethought it, and they have now found something that nobody fathomed before, guessed existed, by simply sort of putting into work okay, here we have this stuff. Where does it come from? Why is there such a big area that's got little clues in that? And back to the metaphors, like you see all these clues distributed all over the place. How do they hang together? Think in genetic terms. What went on here in the past? Reconstruct the past. Try and understand, where did the fluid flow come from? Is there enough mineralization here to suggest massive leaching of it from somewhere else? And is it all accounted for, well, by what we do know? Or is there missing metal that may have concentrated elsewhere? This is the next big wave of exploration, is to go into these systems where you haven't got something that works at the current metal prices, but you rethink it. And I mentioned, I think in a past comment, Ivanhoe's Oyu Tolgoi project. Near surface stuff Ivanhoe bought from BHP Billiton was worthless at the time, but they followed the scent and came up with the Hugo Dummett zone, which is underground mineable, but it was 5 times the grade and a fabulous deposit. It was a big system. They had only found the peripheral pimples of the system. This is the sort of thinking that a lot of these juniors stuck with deposits that don't work. They need to put their geologists to work and do almost academic type work explaining what went on here. Do we really...
Now, John, you used to kind of call these science projects. Are science projects not such a bad thing these days? I kind of like them myself.
Well, the days of just being an old-fashioned prospector who walks the ground and bangs the rocks and assays them and stumbles across an exposed deposit are over. This has been done for the past 100 years, and it's been assisted with satellite imagery and all kinds of stuff like that. The next round of major discoveries are going to be undercover, either barren rocks like younger lava flows that buried it, or even sediments that got dropped on it after the deposits were put in place, or things that are obscured by gravel or overburden. And you know, we were talking about Athabasca Basin earlier. By Uravan Minerals, which has been a long-running spec value hunter buy recommendation, they developed a geochemical tool for sampling the clay at surface, which has no relationship to the fluid flows that created the deposits, uranium deposits at the unconformity. But it was basically scientists who said, you know, there are microbes, anaerobic microbes, which somehow managed to get down to, you know, even 1,200 meters through the sandstone to the basement rock where these deposits sit, and they literally eat the sulfides, get energy from them, and then they have methane exhalations, which somehow they pick up all these things like lead isotopes that are the decay products of uranium, and these gases, like little transport vehicles, carry them to the surface where they get stuck at the clay, which is relatively young clay, glacially transported clay. And these guys have figured out a way of sampling this, and they have got a tool now for identifying anomalies that are geochemical anomalies that are associated with deep uranium deposits. The case study at Cigar Lake proved it. The Centennial case study proved it. And now the government, or the university system, through the Canadian Mining Innovation Council, is collaborating with Cameco and all kinds of industry professionals, scientists, geologists, and all that, to do a footprints project on the MacArthur Millennium Systems, to do this sort of big picture thinking, like how big is the alteration system? What are the peripheral clues that we can relate to these known deposits and turn into diagnostic strategies for looking at other areas to find other major world-class deposits where at the moment we just have these sort of you know, low-grade indications that aren't a deposit yet. This program is being done, will be done in about 2 years. The results will be public. The whole Athabasca Basin is going to undergo a revival because every little junior will now know the protocols that Uravan, you know, protects because they developed them on their own, because this geochemical technique will be part of this footprints project. So all these companies that are sitting in the deeper parts of the basin over the structural corridors such as Cable Bay, Virgin, Axis, and so on, who have no geochemical basis for justifying drilling a geophysical target, will be able to see if there is a geochemical footprint associated with that geophysical target. And if there are, and if indeed the government footprints project shows that MacArthur also has such a geochemical footprint at surface, this will, I think, attract a lot of money into the Athabasca Basin juniors, first to sample it in this manner, and then to drill it, because this geochemical anomaly will be a major indicator that there is a uranium deposit at depth. We don't know quite how deep, we don't know what grade and what size, but it's a lot better than drilling holes at geochemically blind geophysical targets.
You know, we've blown our brains out in the diamond business doing that, John. You know, you need that geochem to back it up, and you know, I like where you're going with all this science and trying to find those buried elephants. You know, that's where we got to go in the future. It's not going to be just walking along old-fashioned geology, especially in places like Canada and the United States. So you need those kind of people in those, whether it's down in Arizona where you're looking for zinc or lead and copper, zinc and silver, or in the Athabasca looking for uranium, or up north looking for diamonds. You know, they didn't call me Geochemical Ali for nothing, John.
and you know, it's important for investors in the resource juniors to understand that these are longer term plays. In the past, it was all about instant gratification. You know, you do a drum roll ahead of a drill program. You do a big marketing campaign. You trick people into buying it with the anticipation of making a quick buck overnight because suddenly the drill hole delivers a big intersection. What this sector needs is smart audiences who understand the geological hypothesis, who are willing to stick with the story for a couple years and support it and monitor for encouragement. And what the companies need to do, they can't be one-trick ponies, because the best hypothesis, most good hypotheses, get shot down. Only a tiny percentage succeed.
Just a couple days ago, I had Gwen Preston on the show, and she was talking about how she puts things into different time frame buckets. And as she was explaining it, I really thought that, you know, investors would really, this putting companies into different buckets allows them the time frame to do what they're trying to accomplish. And so then the investor isn't so quick to make a foolish decision, because they put a long-term story play out into a, I want this to be a short-term investment thesis, and it just doesn't work. And so it gets on to what you were just talking about there, I think, John, that you have to look at these things realistically. They're not going to be, you know, a home run tomorrow.
Yeah, you know, the whole trading culture that dominates the market now, it's really a zero-sum game. For whatever trade you make where you're on the right side of the swing, somebody else is losing the money. But when you're investing money in ventures such as resource exploration companies, and part of that money at least is going into the ground, it's more than simply a zero-sum game. You're contributing to an entire ecosystem and economy, and you're potentially generating new wealth, which the world needs, which sustains the world. And we really got to get an attitude back about gambling on these types of fundamental outcomes with longer-term perspectives. And last week we talked, or last time we were on together, we talked about these new existing shareholder exemption, which allows retail people to invest in private placements. I think the existing shareholder portion is nonsense. But I agree with that $15,000 per company per calendar year limit. People interested in this sector should get themselves, you know, a dozen or so of these interesting juniors with distinct groups, and have these things going and be following them for 1 to 2 years. And you're playing a statistics game in an intelligent manner.
Exactly, John. And that's what this is all about, putting the odds into our favor. And you know, doing things in an intelligent way. I'm so glad I had you on today, John. That was a great note to end on. But before I ended, you know, I'm a rock hound. I see a bunch of rock behind you there. What, you got any quick story for me on that rock you've collected?
Okay, I want to show you one that I couldn't show last time.
Okay.
This is a cobble from the CH7 pipe on the Chidliak project, which I picked up when I visited a number of years ago. To me, it's just a boring looking rock, but yeah. Peter Holmes, the geologist for Peregrine, said, this is a mantle xenolith, and this pipe is full of mantle xenoliths. He said, get this professionally sawn in half, and you will find something spectacular. I haven't yet gotten around to finding somebody who knows how to do that. But this type of boring looking rock on the outside is what makes rich diamond pipes tick. And I just wanted to show you this thing, when one day I'll have it sawn and I will show it again to you.
Dude, don't cut the diamond, John.
Well, yeah, destroy the diamond saw, and then the party that I'm paying this is going to charge me $1,000 to replace his broken diamond blade.
Kaiser, you screwed up my diamond blade, man.
What do you got in here?
That is too much, John. Awesome, John. Well, thanks a lot for joining me again. It's been a great show. You've been really generous. We've been at it for just about an hour now, John. And I think, again, when you're talking, I just think you're a wonderful advertisement for what you do and what people can get when they're subscribing to your stuff. This kind of research and knowledge and homework and doing this stuff, investors can't really reproduce. You can get it from John, and he's done refined everything down for you. Again, I want to pitch my subscribers to go and check out that subscription. If you don't want to test out the full year, at least test out for a few months and see what it's all about. I think for $100, you even just go and try that tool, and I think you'll be sold. On that note, again, John, thanks a lot for coming on.
Allan, thank you. I truly enjoyed this session.
Awesome. Well, we'll do it again too, John. We're going to get on a regular basis, and I'm going to promote it out there so we get more people joining us live.
Great.
Awesome. On that note, I always have to say, before making any investment decisions, it's important to speak with your financial advisors, do your homework. This show is only for information purposes only. I want to thank my viewers, John Kaiser, our guest, for coming on, my sponsors, Wolfton Resources and Premier Gold Mines. On that note, you have a great day, and we will see you soon.